Welcome to Hardwood Hustle, and we've got a special guest today. TJ and I are joined by my good friend Cody Anderson. He's head high school coach, and Cody's coached at the college and the high school level and bounced back and forth a little bit over the last few years. And we thought it'd be great to bring Cody on. He's a great coach, but also just kind of pull the curtains back and let coaches who may be going through something similar or potentially going through it of like making decisions on, do I stay in college? Do I pursue the college scene? Do I go high school? How does family collide with that? And so, Cody, maybe here's my starting question for you. What is the biggest differences in coaching at the college level versus the high school level that you have found?
Yeah, I think the biggest change or challenge that I'm still trying to figure the answer out to is in college, especially Division I level where I was, there was a certain level of basketball held a certain priority level to every player that you have, and they all say they want to go pro, and so they understand a lot of those things. So there's a common ground there of you always have their attention because basketball really does mean a ton to them. At high school, it's completely different. I've got three really talented freshmen who they want to play college basketball. They will play college basketball. Everything they do, basketball is kind of motivating those decisions. But then I've also got the guy that I need on my team who's going to have a role, but his end goal is he just wants to have a good experience. He wants to have a good high school experience, but that's not the end all be all. And so whereas at college, I'm servicing a program of how do we drive these guys to being the best that we can be on the court while wanting to change them off the court. Where in high school, how do I service the guy where this guy wants to be a college player? This guy just wants to have fun with his buddies, And so I think that's the biggest thing that I'm still wrestling with and struggling with because I do believe you can do both of those. But I think that's the biggest difference, I would say.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. I mean, I'd agree with that in coaching, college and watching just my kids and playing high school basketball. I remember my dad, he was a high school coach. And when I went into coaching, he said, one of the hardest things for you in coaching is going to be that you really wanted it bad. And you're going to have players that don't want it as bad as you. And what do you do with that? And I think that's a pretty common thing for coaches at any level, but in high school for sure, where you have a mixture of players that have, they think about it every minute, and you're trying to probably help them find their identity in more than just basketball. And then you have others that, they have a just slight, like to do it, enjoy being there, but you're trying to get them to be a little bit more excited about. So what are some tactics that you use? How do you, let's get into the nuts and bolts of that. How do you balance that to ensure that, your lowest common denominator is getting where they need to get and your highest common denominator is getting where they need to get?
Yeah, I think, I'm still on that journey of finding that answer. I think I've learned a lot through failure through driving way too hard. I mean, as an example, in the process of interviewing for this job here, I've got a class that I teach that has a weight component and then just a skill component, to it. And it was so critical to me that I get all my basketball players in there and we have it year round and every single day. And like that sounded awesome to me. Like, man, we can really close, like we can increase our skill and do all these things. And then the actual practice of every single day for an hour and a half, me wanting it to be a certain way, like that went out the window really, really quickly. And I realized that if I just want to take that approach, then we're going to end up creating really bad habits. And I'm going to burn out not just the kids that, I'm going to have a team of 3 players. And the GHSA does not sanction 3-on-3 right now, So I think the biggest thing for me is getting to know what each individual player wants. Like, what is their end goal? What is their why? And so, at the beginning of the school year, I have individual meetings with every kid, and I use that class time to do that. And then we create goal sheets. And so now I can know, okay, well, this kid wants to be a college basketball player. So every single day when you come in here, this is what we're doing. I have other kids that don't necessarily want to do that. So, their on-court stuff or their weight room stuff looks a little bit different. And so trying to mix that up, but then also for me, going in, scheduling my during the school day piece, scheduling it so that every day is not at a level 100. Like, I think there's a lot of things that you can get done strategically if okay, today I'm not going to kill them physically, but instead we're going to, do this other component, whether it's film, whether it's, the weight room. Like I've had to get a lot more creative with that. But then I think everything that we talk about today will come back to how much do I invest in them as people? And I found out that the more that I love my players, whether the ones that are crazy about basketball or the ones that are not, the more they're willing to give a little bit more. And we all know this. Like the trick for us is basketball can teach people life. Like basketball can help. I mean, playing in our program can help the guy that wants to. I have a kid that's going on scholarship to shoot shotguns in college. Like that's what he's doing. And I've never heard of that before coming here. But like I believe that he can be a better whatever that is by being a part of our program. And so taking that approach. But then for me, I think it all starts with me going into it realistic. Like this is not going to be a full speed practice for 90 minutes every single day. And that's hard for me.
So hold on, you just said that the kid's going to college to shoot shotguns?
For free, yes.
I had no idea that existed.
Well, hey, just an FYI, I don't know all the levels of it, but I think at Emmanuel we just won a national championship in shotgun shooting. I don't even think that's the right word, rifle, whatever, but we just won a championship in it. So I do know about it, actually.
Well, I've got a big time shotgun shooter over here, and I have not seen Emmanuel College on campus yet.
Well, that's news. Y'all are wild out there in the country, both of you guys. Didn't know that existed. So, Cody, you coached, like you said, Division I, and then you also coached at your alma mater, and now you're in another school, and you're alluding to this of like you, and I know you, and I've kind of seen you from afar running your program. You're running a high school program in a lot of ways like a college program. I think that's probably fair to say. You can correct me if I'm wrong. So tell me have you run up against pushback on that, because you are asking a lot of your kids, and you're alluding to that, like whether it be from the kids, whether it be from the parents, is that just kind of par for course? And you're like, yeah, when you're creating a culture like I'm trying to create, I kind of know that's going in. But maybe just talk about any friction, tension you've ran up against, or maybe they've just opened your arms and said, man, we love this. Like, where are you at with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's interesting too. We talk all the time in our program about like, everybody wants to play fast, but not everybody wants to practice fast. I think in today's world, because I can go post something on social media, there's kind of a loss of like your words matter, when you say something, like you should mean it. And if you're going to say you're going to do it, you're going to do it. And so, we talk a lot about, I believe in doing things first class. Like I believe if you came and you watched our program, we're trying to do things at a first class level across the board. I mean, whether it's, film, whether it's what we do in the weight room, whether it's what we do strength and conditioning, nutrition wise, those kind of things. So I think to begin with, everybody says they want that. And in the interview process, every parent that I spoke to, every administrator was fired up about that. When you get into the actual doing it every day, as you guys have done, and that's really, really difficult to do. And so, yeah, there's been some pushback in the parents that say, hey, well, my son does want to go play Division I basketball, but we also want to take vacations all, during this, that. And it's been a great learning opportunity for me to turn it back around and say, well, you can do whatever you want to do, but I don't know that aligns with the necessary goal that you're saying. And so I think there's challenges that way. But then the other thing comes back to me. For Coach Jenkins, our head football coach, who is a fantastic football, like for Morgan County to be successful in football and basketball, we're going to have to share some athletes. And I know myself, especially at Habersham Central, and even here, I mean, I'm guilty of creating a culture in a basketball program where that kid's going to have to think twice about doing both, because we do things year round. I mean, our staff's been going, this week alone, we're offering 22 hours of 4-on-1 workouts across, the whole week, our staff. And so when you do that, I think you limit maybe what they can do. And so, me getting creative. But I have found that I think when you're honest with people, when you cast a vision very, very clearly and talk about this is what we're doing, this is why we're going to do it, I think the people that want that get on board, and the people that don't, they don't. And I learned a long time ago that you can't make everyone happy. And so sometimes, like, just being upfront and honest, and hey, this may not be how so-and-so did it. And, heck, they've had a lot of success here at Morgan County doing things differently than how I do it. And so, but for me, hey, this is who I am. And at the end of the day, you're going to attract the people that want to be here and want to do this. And Those that don't, or probably better off, doing something else.
I think this is a really important thing for coaches to have a game plan for. How are you going to navigate this? Because we know coaches similar situations to you. We have some that probably have players that have more that love it, less that love it, but everybody's navigating this. I mean, girls, guys, I hear this sometimes on our PGC coaching where some of the coaches will talk about, gosh, I got to get enough players out there, and then other teams, like I got tons of players that want to play. And, interesting enough, like we do even sometimes battle this in the approach that we take in college. Like I think this is a relevant story, but it goes to what you're talking about as far as like, how do we put all these people in the right places? So we had off-season workouts, and our college season is long, and we basically have about 3 weeks in the spring where we can work with them. And we have a series of guards, returning. They're all really hungry players that put it in all summer. We got one that's, going to be a pro, got a chance to get drafted, but his work ethic, his time is that he puts in is just different than everybody else. He's kind of bled into the other guards that are now putting in that time and doing the same thing. And then we have a group of post players similar to what you were talking about. They like it, but how good do they want to be? How much they want to put in? And so during the off season, we had those guards do their typical maintenance workouts, very similar to their just skill development, their weight room, all that stuff. And then we put post players through like 3 weeks of just really hard, get up in the morning, do crappy stuff, whatever. Yep. And there was a lot of rumblings. And, there's, and one of our players mentioned in class, one of the teachers says, when's the time you felt the most disrespected ever? And, this player said, right now, our coaches are totally disrespecting us. Our guards are doing nothing and we're doing all this crap, And so we had to have a breakdown with our players. Well, why? Why are we doing what we're doing? And I think the general consensus, and I wonder if you battle this with parents, is like everybody's supposed to do the same. Yep. Like everybody's supposed to have equal. That the player that's getting more work or more attention might feel like it's too much, or the player that's getting less might feel like they're caring more about these players. But I don't necessarily agree with that approach. I don't think that happens most places in life. I mean, I think that people are at different places, and if A wants to go to the league, then I'm going to work with that player like their aspirations. And if C is just trying to, get by, well, I know for our team to be good, I need to at least have him be a B. So I'm going to challenge him to that place of where they're either going to quit or they're going to say, look, I'm willing to do this much work to get there. And I imagine there's a lot of dynamics that go into that with administration and parents and, all of those different things. But would you say that it's okay to meet a player where they are, and I want to take them to whatever their dreams and aspirations are? And then how do I get players see whose dreams and aspirations might be actually to a place where they might not help the team? And how do I raise them up to a place where they will help the team? And balance all that together?
Yeah, I think if I'm being honest, high school wise, that's probably key number one to building a sustainable, successful program. Minus, recruiting and doing all those things. Like I think at the end of the day, we got to develop our kids. And so one of the things that I've found successful in my coaching career is I'm not that coach. Like if parents want to talk, I'm going to talk to them. And when they come in my office, I've got a nice little sitting area. We're going to sit there, and I'll start the meeting off by saying, I love your son. And I believe I've shown that I love your son. And everything we're going to talk about today, like I'm not professing to be John Wooden. The only reason my opinion matters is because they hired me to sit behind this desk. And if they hired you to sit behind this desk, then your opinion would be the one that matters. And so I think by doing that, one, it alleviates, like, this isn't an ego thing. It's not. But two, if your son tells me he wants to be a Division I basketball player, I'm going to hold him to that standard. And so I've got a young man who has said that since I've got here. I don't believe that his work ethic or daily actions reflect that. And so every single day, anytime I see him below that standard, I'm bringing him over and I'm reminding him, have you changed your goals and dreams? No, I haven't. Okay, well, you're not at the standard today. And then I make sure I have those conversations with those parents. And then on the reverse side, like I've got a young man, freshman, who is very, very talented. I need him. But I also know that if I work him 365, 12 months out of the year, I'm going to lose him. And the kid happens to be very, very talented at track. And so for that young man, I mean, we've been really getting after it for the last month. but he's running track, so he gets one workout a week. And I think by giving him that space is going to then bring him fueled back to me come June, ready to get better. And I would rather have his full attention in June than I would, man, let's make him do this, make him do that. And so I think you said it right. I think you have to meet, especially at high school. And I have the beauty too that whereas if you don't win at the end of the day, there is a limit to how long you're going to be able to do it. Whereas for me, I really can meet them where they're at, and then give them more that, hey, okay, if you want to move here, this is what you're going to do. But if you're not going to do anything, then you're going to fall behind, because at the end of the day, one of the beauties of being at high school is it is more about other things than just winning as opposed to the college level. And so trying to give them that. But I've also been here long enough now to where, like, the guys that have really bought in, they're seeing gains in the weight room. They're seeing their bodies transform. They're seeing their games transform. And just like that young man that works out for the first time and now you can't keep a shirt on him, like all of a sudden now those other guys, well, man, I don't really know about doing all that work, but I really want what those guys have gotten. And so the last piece that I would say on this is our high school staff probably invests more in our middle school guys than I would argue. I'm not going to say we do the most in the state, but you'd be hard pressed to find a staff that does more, because if I can grab them when they're young, man, like I can start to instill some of this stuff that they fall in love with that work. There's some joy in that work. And if you can ever get a person to find joy in doing something difficult, well, now the taxing load that takes on a normal human being is so much less.
That's good, Cody. Really, that makes me think of something we teach at PGC or used to, which is like, you know, in a team, you have an A. If you categorize players into A, B, and C, A is like your top 10%. They're gonna show up early, stay late. They're gonna do the extra. Your B players are the ones that they're coachable. They do what you ask. Then your C players, you know, they miss workouts. They don't like you. And we say like championship teams don't have any C players. Like they weed out, and then you're trying to get your A to bring your B along. But you know, that made me think of that. Let's take a side step for a minute. I want to talk about this with you and get your perspective. So I guess I see like high school and college. You know, I coached a decade at the college level. I have never been a high school coach, but I see three big differences. One is the time commitment from just let's talk about in season. College, you're getting on a plane, you're getting on long bus rides. The games is just more travel. Whereas high school, most of the time you're within an hour or so, right, of playing all your games. I would say high school also from a practice standpoint, you have a little bit more structure. You're either going to practice early morning or hopefully, you know, right after school, you can get home and, you know, have dinner with your family, you know, and you're going to maybe watch film later that night or whatever. Whereas college, you know, may not be the case. And then the third thing is the recruiting commitment of the college coach that you experience. Like, is that how you see it? Is there anything else in addition to that? And then like, just open up like I said, like how have you now, because you became a dad recently too, like that plays into some of the decision making, but how do you think through the college coach profession versus the high school from that standpoint?
The first thing that my dad taught me this lesson when I first got to Georgia, I just became obsessed with the idea of being a Division I coach. And so I made being a student manager about as time consuming and as difficult as you possibly could, because I poured into it. And I would blame whether it be Coach Fox or I'd blame, you know, Georgia, Division I SEC. And then I go to Longwood, and I made being a director of basketball operations at a low major school about as time consuming and as difficult a job as you could. And I blamed it on maybe Jason G, or, hey, I'm in a low major school, we don't have resources. And then when I became an assistant, I made that as time consuming and as difficult as I possibly could. And so when I contemplated the first time leaving Division I, and my identity was that, you know, I was telling my dad, like, you know, man, I'm winning no categories against my peers except for the career. I mean, I can't keep a girl, you know, I have no relationship with my family, but I've got this great career. And so my dad cautioned me. He said, well, son, understand, like, you can blame Mark Fox, you can blame being a student assistant, you can blame Jason G, you can do all these things. But at the end of the day, there's only one person that's been in all those situations. And so I'm like, well, yeah, okay, I hear that. Well, then I go to Haversham Central, and I make being a high school head coach about as time consuming and as demanding as you possibly could. And so I realized, like, I can go be a doorman at Lowe's, and I'm probably going to make that as difficult a thing as possible. And so I think, one, understanding that like every situation, you've got to make the most of it. And there are certainly advantages, as you alluded to the way the high school game is set up. But I can come show you some weeks that I've done here and that I've done at Habersham Central, and I'm working the exact same amount of hours. And so I think the first thing is like why are you doing what you do? When I left the first time, I think I had an idea of what I wanted, but in actuality, I really didn't do that. I went back to college because I had found my wife. I had what I left for, and I thought, well, I'll go back and I can have all that at home, but still go, do the thing during the day and all that stuff. And so coming back here, I was very clear with my AD, now's the time where I've got the opportunity to be at home every night. I'm not on the road 100 nights a week, but it's an intentional every single day for me. Okay, Cody, you left the college game for a reason. So are you utilizing that? And I think the advantages are you are at home. Like you spend every night at home. At the end of the day, there is no recruiting, which takes up more. I mean, TJ he's probably got 30 recruiting texts since we've been on this call. I mean, it's a all-consuming thing. But I think for me, the difference this time around has been the priority I've placed on my family, and then whether it's mentors or coworkers that I've put accountability partners to say, like, for example, this spring, like I'm running all of our morning workouts, but then each of my 4 assistants, they're running one afternoon a week. So we are servicing a ton of kids, but like I don't have to be the one to do every single thing. And I'm not sure I answered your question, Sam, but the point that I think is huge in all this is like I got to be committed to doing what's right, whether I'm a college coach or a high school coach. And you can get lost in either one.
Yeah, I'd agree with that 100%. I think that, we oftentimes think that by getting this job or by getting that job, everything is going to change, or by selling this house and moving to this house or moving to that area. And I really think 90% of the time, I'm not saying all of the time, but it's an inside job. Like, your peace with what you're doing, your investment of time, your balance of family, your whatever it might be, is an inside job. I think Cody's 100% right there. And I think a lot of times but I think probably all 3 of us on this call are wired to win, and we would put in whatever we had to for whatever it is. Sam, when you're coaching, I feel the same way coaching my daughter's, 8th grade AAU team. Like I'm all in. Like I want there to be a good balance, but I'm also thinking, gosh, we need to practice more. That's my internal feeling, because I want them to do really well. And I really think that it's important. Cody, you mentioned some things that you put into place, and Sam, I think we've done the same, put things into place, but accountability partners. And, I love the old Don Meyer, the key to life is being thankful for your lot in life. And whether that lot is 6th grade girls or boys, or whether that's high school, whether that's college, like I don't think there's any more importance that God puts on one team than another, and the kids that you're investing in. But so one is just getting thankful for that lot in life. And then 2 is putting the boundaries that Cody was talking about in place to make sure that you succeed in that lot in life. And let's talk a little bit more about that, because I think it's a lifelong journey for all of us. I mean, there's probably some places you're winning and some other places you're winning. But one of the things I wanted to talk about is, is do you enjoy what you do? I say this oftentimes. My boundaries that I try and set are so that I love doing what I do every day, and my players love doing what they're doing every day. If you were to ask me what's the biggest difference between us and most teams in February, my team's really excited to be in the gym still. And I think that's hard to say. And I would say even with me, I'm excited to be in the gym in February. And I think that balance is really important. So Cody, talk more about that. You talked about accountability partners, and Sam, you chime in too. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. What are ways coaches do this? Like, how do they balance their desire to be great? Because, look, Cody, I don't think you feel any more pressure in a game than I do or Bill Self does, because the pressure we put on ourselves is the highest level of pressure. But how do we balance all of those things that you guys have used in your life to ensure? Because I really want that for coaches. I want coaches to love doing what they do every day. I mean, Sam, how many coaches do we come across that don't love what they're doing? right? They're miserable. They're not happy. And I really think it's a lot of these practices. So I want you guys to talk to me a little bit about those. What are things coaches should be doing to ensure that they're fresh, they feel good, that they got all aspects of their life rolling?
Well, I'll say the biggest thing is I talk about it. Like I talk about my kids that they did this thing at the end of the year where they like put like what Coach Anderson says. And one of the quotes that they put of like 6 was, "Man, I love my wife." Like I think when we talk about things, those that are around us are more likely to feel they can approach us about those things. And so, like with my wife being pregnant, we had a scare like most do, where we think she's going into labor, and we're about to start practice, and my wife's doing that whole like I think it is kind of thing, and I'm sitting there, and my players are like, "Coach, everything okay?" And I said, "My wife is," and they're like, "Well, Coach, you got to go, you got to go." And so I think one thing is talking about it. But then, with my staff, like we talk all the time about like I want them to think they can come in here and talk about their relationships, my relationships, with our families. And I think mostly when you talk about things, I think people can like they're more likely to approach you. But then I think a huge thing is having those accountability partners, having those barriers in place. Like I've got several people in my life that every week we're talking about like, how are you serving your wife this week? How are you serving your son this week? Like one of my favorite, like Mo Williams, the head coach at Salisbury, he asks me all the time, is that really that important? Like, does that really, really matter? And the answer is most of the time, no, it doesn't matter. It doesn't. And then two, I don't know about you guys, but anytime I stop, and I think meeting with your players is so important about other things besides basketball, because I was very, very difficult on a young man at one part of our season. And he kept falling asleep in class, and I'd bring him in. And, I wouldn't even give him a chance to speak, and I would just go at him. Well, the next week, his mom finally takes him to the doctor, kind of find out he had a brain tumor. So it's like, my gosh, like if I would have just slowed down for just a second to listen and see some of those signs, maybe I wouldn't have known there was a brain tumor, but I would have known something else was going on, or man, I mean, if I had just stopped to slow down and talk to this young man, I'd realize that him and his mom just got evicted. And if I would have done that, well, now all of a sudden for me, that grounds me back to my why. And I'm immediately sucked out of that just, basketball dictator. We got to go, go, go. And so I think just talking about more things than just basketball puts it on the top of our minds more.
Yeah, that's good, Cody. And TJ, I think your question's a really good one. Like, how do coaches, what do you build in, like boundaries into your life so that you don't be all consumed? And I think we all three can relate to you do get all consumed as a coach because you want to win, you want to make an impact, you want to reach that kid on your team who just you can't get a breakthrough. So you think about it when you go to bed and first thing when you wake up. And I think early on, Cody, I think you just mentioned this is like we can be great coaches and we can be great in our home and we can be present as a coach and like sometimes we think we wear this red badge at Courage, like we've got to like watch more tape and grind. And I always think about this interview that I heard Greg Popovich in the playoffs. The reporter asked him, they just lost a game. He's like, well, what are you going to do to make an adjustment? He's like, well, I'm going to go home and I'm going to have a glass of wine and my assistants will probably watch a bunch of film and tell us what we need to do. But, and then if you read the book, The Culture Code, he talks about like, you can tell how much connection and relationship matter to him and the culture he builds for the Spurs. And that's why I so respect even him. He's sitting here, man, dude's won like 5 championships. Most coaches like him, he's had like 5 straight really bad seasons. The dude's still coaching these guys up. Anyways, my point is on this is like, how do we build boundaries? I don't have it all figured out myself. Date nights with your wife, like make it mandatory to have a date night with your wife or your husband or your significant other during the season, weekly or bi-weekly. If you have kids, like don't hope that it happens, but just like we wouldn't hope to win a game. We would have a scouting report. Well, we need to have a plan and things on the calendar that are non-negotiable for our personal lives. Even if you're not married and you don't have kids, like still work out or go shoot shotguns if that's what you do. Like you need to have outlets and so that you protect yourself. But what happens is, and my last point here is like, we all, like, coaches are like, I'll start doing it after the season. No, your kids, the kids you're coaching, need you to be at your best now. We don't need to be at our best after the season. Let's stay at our best during the season. So that's how I think about it. But I think that's a good question, TJ.
Yeah, and I think I really like, Cody, what you said. Is it that important? And I think it's a great question to ask that somebody mentioned to you. Is it'll also, I think, for a good thing for coaches to be aware of. It'll change over time. Like one of the things when our kids were younger, I really felt like I was balancing it really well. And now that our kids have gotten older, it's a whole new equation and problem where they have events and they have things that they're going to, and then you want to make it to all of their events. And how do you balance it? I actually think it's like a year-to-year thing where coaches need to reevaluate, what does good balance look like this year? Does my relationship need to be watered more with my spouse? With my kids? Because I don't think it's just the same where you build a routine. I think you got to continually grow in this aspect of winning those. Like, and what aspects do you want to win in? Because the one place I don't feel great about right now is my health. Like I haven't exercised nearly as much as I want to and whatever, because every time I had, we're on 6 days a week, in college. And then there's that one day off. And if I feel like I have that day off, like I owe my family so much time. And if I feel like I've got an hour or two free, I feel like I need to give it to them versus give it to my own exercise. But I also know if I step back from that, a healthier version of me is a healthier, giver to them. And I really do think, and I think it's important for coaches to balance, all of that out. And there's one thing I'm really proud of, like in our program, that I don't even like mentioning on the air, to be honest with you. But like, there's so many times when I tell our assistant coaches, like, don't go recruiting, don't go do that. Like your wife, your kids, because it goes back to Cody's question. Is it that important? With all of the kids out there, all the ones that reach out to us, there's this thing in the back. Like, am I outworking everybody? And I don't think the question should be, am I outworking everybody? I think the question should be what we're talking about here. Am I putting my time in the right places? Am I spending my time in the places it needs to be spent? Cody was alluding to, with your players, with more conversations. Like there are places I do not want to sacrifice in our program. That's loving our players. I will sacrifice time on the road recruiting. And so I think knowing what you're willing to sacrifice and what you're not willing to sacrifice is really, really important. Cody, moving to this next little topic, just transition a little bit, question wise, go over like the course of a season in high school, like just being able to balance all that and being able to develop players. How do you break up your season? Do you think about like the season, the spring, the summer, just give a coach an overarching look at developing the year in a program in a way that your players are getting better, you're improving, because you talked about maybe too much when you were going that hour and a half. So just give a broad overview of what you think ideal. And I also really love the thought of your middle school, like pouring into them, so just go program high, because it sounds like you got a great grasp on how to run a program. So just hit some of the top keys and what a year looks like in running a great program.
Yeah, so I think, most of us, when we take a new high school job, we take it in the spring. And so I think the spring is such an exciting time, whether it's a new job or even like this year for me, it was like, man, season ends, you take your 2-3 weeks more, whatever you choose. You have your meeting with your players. But then like for us here, the spring is all about you. Like it's not about team right now. It's about how can we improve your skill. And so, we'll sit down with all of our guys and talk about what they want to improve upon. And then we obviously have what the staff thinks they need to improve upon. And I try to make sure we do a little bit of both. I want them to feel like, man, I had this goal in mind and we did it, but also we got better for the program. And so spring, I tell, our parents all the time, our job is to create opportunities. The kids' job is to do the work. And so I'm really proud of our staff, and we'll open that up all the way from middle school up to high school. And so maybe one week I'm going to put all of our point guards together. The next week, maybe we're going to do a mixed group. The next week, maybe I'm going to take 2 high school kids and put them with 2 middle school kids. So we'll do that all spring. And so the whole focus there is just skill work. And then in the summertime, obviously, we'll hit it heavy with our high school team, but we also have a middle school program that we do in the summertime. And part of that is just to, one, get with, I want those guys to want to play for Morgan County. I want them to have a relationship with me when they're in middle school. And then I want them to know, terminology. I want them to know how we play. I try to give our middle school coaches the autonomy to coach their team, but do it within the confines of what we do. And so that time is great because I get to get in the gym with those guys. And in Georgia, we have the 4-on-1 rule during the school year when you're out of season. And so the summertime is a lot more team concepts. So we'll run, heavy, 5 days a week in June. And then July, we do pickup 2 nights a week. We lift weights 2 nights a week. And then we have an optional skills time that we open up to middle school, really anybody, 1 day a week. And then once school starts, I think it's important that coaches, regardless of high school or college, like let your kids get into a routine of the school year. Let them be a normal, let them be excited to see, who's going to be in the bus area, who's car rider. Let them, do all those things. And then we'll hit skill work again. And in the fall, I typically will try to do more concept things. So it's not necessarily just improving skill work, but it's more like, okay, like our react to drive principles. We're going to really hammer those home. So more conceptual stuff that we'll do leading up to tryouts. But I try to offer things year round, obviously vary it up. And then obviously, I'm fortunate here. We have a weight training class for basketball guys. And so we're hitting the weights year round.
Cody, what's one of the best pieces of advice? You've had good mentors and people to learn from. And actually, as I say this question, maybe something you learn not to do as well. But like, what is one of the top 1 or 2 things you've been taught or learned up to this point in your coaching profession that other coaches need to know?
How you make people feel matters. And how you make people feel far beyond when they're gone. That's what changes lives. And for me, my high school coach, Don Ledbetter, I had a great childhood. I had a great life. But when I look back on why he was so transformational in my life, it's because of how he made me feel, how he treated me. And trust me, he wasn't always kind to me. Like he wasn't always the nice, let me off the hook. But I think that piece. And then the last thing I would say is there's nothing new under the sun. And so when we convince ourselves as coaches that we're going to find this new trick or this new this or this new that, I'm going to spend that time investing in my players. I'm going to spend that time getting to know them as people. I'm going to spend that time telling them that I love them. And then the last thing I'll say, and I know I've given you 2 and you asked me for 1, I'm going to give you 3. One of the most powerful things that I would encourage all coaches to do, I got this from my high school coach, and I've carried out my entire career. Every day, every player must come by my office and tell me goodbye. And at first in high school, I thought that was silly. But every single day, every player at Morgan County is going to hear that I love them and I can't wait to see them tomorrow, no matter how good the day's been, no matter how bad the day's been. If they had a really good day, maybe I can give them a humbling message and then tell them I love them. If they had a really bad day, I can encourage them. But I have found that to be so powerful because we don't know what those kids are walking out to. You don't know what they're going home to. And so I think the power of our words at the end of the day, tell them I love them, is a powerful thing.
Oh yeah, Cody, that's great, man. First of all, I love your heart, where you're coming from. And I think as coaches are listening to this episode, I hope they hear your heart too, because I think it's the heart of a coach that we want, one that feels this way. I think we're all in this to make the game better, to improve what's going on and in our world of basketball. And we do that one player at a time, one team at a time. And just the response to all of the questions, your thoughts, your forward thinking, your experiences that you had, man, it really sounds like you've got it lined up correctly. And as high school coaches or college coaches, whoever's listening to this, are you doing that? Are you taking the time to love your players? Are you taking the time to care about all the players in your program? Do you have things in line to make sure that you're winning and loving the people that are most important to in your life? So, Cody, I just want to take a second to celebrate you, man. We give snaps at PGC and just celebrate people that have got those things aligned. And I know you're probably like anybody else. Like you said, you fail at it sometimes and you just keep going. I know I'm that daily. My ideas and my aspirations are big and I want to do all those things right. Many days I walk away feeling like I failed and I didn't do a great job of that. But Cody, as we wrap up here, are you on social? Is anywhere coaches can follow you, get to know you, and maybe if they got questions can ask, or do you use social at all?
So it's actually funny. This is part of me prioritizing my family. I am still on Twitter at Coach C Anderson, but I have given up Facebook and Instagram, both for my marriage. That has been a temptation that I have eliminated, that I think it's good. This is even more accountability for me. But then also, like, that stuff just doesn't matter. And I see how it destroys our players, and who would I be to tell them they shouldn't do it, but yet I'm sitting here doing it as well. But no, at Coach C Anderson. I am pretty active on Twitter, and would love to connect with anyone because I'm learning just like everybody else.
Yeah, so go check him out there, and salute to you on that, man, making the decision. I think it's one of my wife's best decisions she ever made. She got off social media, and I think just that being intentional. And you're right. I mean, kids love it, and they love what it's about, but it can oftentimes steal a little bit of that attention and priority time. But Cody, thanks for what you do, man. I appreciate all that you're doing for the game and the players that you're leading on a regular basis. Coaches out there, if you get a chance, we've got player tracks coming up. We're working on player development. But talking about these things Cody just talked about, how do you prioritize your spring, and then what are you doing in the summer, and what are you doing in your long-term plans? And really, along the way, player development is a lot more than just doing the right skills and drills. It's investing in people. So check those out as one of our new tracks at PGC Coaching. We got those coming up. Hey, listen, he is Sam, I am TJ, and we are the Hardwood Hustle.
Thanks again for tuning into this episode of the Hardwood Hustle, where we believe in the value of a coach. Be sure to check us out on Twitter and Instagram at Hardwood_Hustle to stay up to date on the latest episodes and share your thoughts with our coaching community. From the Hardwood Hustle team, thanks again. We can't wait to be with you again next week.